The sea is calm tonight, off Dover Beach. The birds at dusk cry out syllables of some deconstructed word we are yet unable to decipher to explain existence. And they lift the last light with their wings and fly away with it over the horizon, keeping the secret.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight for a tribute to Lawrence Ferlinghetti, hosted by the San Francisco Chronicle. I'm arts and culture columnist Tony Bravo, and I'm coming to you live tonight from the Chronicle archives here at 901 Mission Street. When Lawrence Ferlinghetti died in February at age 101, for many, it felt like the poet and City Light's bookseller and publisher's co-founder took a piece of San Francisco with him. Ferlinghetti was a literary landmark, a North Beach institution, San Francisco's first poet laureate, a book merchant, an activist, a visual artist, and a neighbor. But to many readers around the world, Ferlinghetti was a vessel that represented a constant rebirth of wonder. Tonight, we'll be viewing recorded tributes by City Light's co-owner Elaine Katzenberger, musician Lane Murchison, who played music with Ferlinghetti and performs with his ensemble, San Francisco's poet laureate Tongo Eisen-Martin, and a special performance by former assistant to Ferlinghetti, Mauro Aprile Zanetti. We'll also be sharing recordings of Ferlinghetti reading his own work, The Quivering Fringe, an a cappella quartet made up of Pixar staffers who have set several of Ferlinghetti's poems to music. Those recordings will be accompanied by photos from the Chronicle archives, which you see all around you, and with artwork by Ferlinghetti himself, provided by Rena Branston Gallery. I am also so pleased to announce that we are joined here live this evening by former San Francisco poet laureate Jack Hirschman, pianist and composer Allison Lovejoy, and San Francisco historian and author Gary Kamiya. They will be reading and playing live later. Throughout this evening's event, which we expect to last a bit more than an hour, we invite you to share what Lawrence Ferlinghetti and his work mean to you. Please use the chat feature on YouTube or Facebook so we can share some of your thoughts. And finally, we'd like to share a message with you in the comments below from City Lights Books with information and a link to support the City Lights Future Fund as this beloved institution moves into a post-founder owner business model. Donations can be made to the foundation via the PayPal link below, or you can email foundation@citylights.com for more information. And now, let the poetry begin.
There are some extraordinary beings that passed among us, and Lawrence was one of them. There aren't that many of them, I don't think. Everyone who was alive while he was here is lucky to have a bit of that, you know. He was a public person, and he had a wonderful public persona, this very folksy kind of welcoming ease in himself that really belied what was a real sort of protected shyness that he had. Yeah, I miss him a lot. I miss him a lot. So he wanted to have a bookstore because of what bookstores do, you know, and what they create. They create a space for ideas and for people to encounter all kinds of ideas. And the building is him, you know, like there is no, it's impregnated with him. So that's a gift he left to everybody. The photo of Emily. She wore a cloche hat. She was Aunt Emily. She spoke French. She had a job as a French governess. She stood on the bridge in Bronxville over the Bronx River, the little river with its little woods and the little bridge, and the swimming hole and the woods where we played Robin Hood. I thought I was Robin Hood, or one of his deerskin men. I wanted a deerskin suit more than anything. I remember that clearly. When I was 8, I stayed awake at night thinking how to make it, how to get it. I would have robbed a rich traveler. That's how rebels are born. She stood on the bridge in her hat. I came to her from the woods where I'd been playing by the little brown river with its dirty crayfish. I came up to her in her long lace dress and black pumps. She had elegant feet, long feet, and aristocrats, she would say. She was a bit mad and elegant. Even then I knew it. She was a Catholic in a mad way, as if she had some special personal connection with the Pope. She thought of herself as a writer, as having something special to say in French. I thought of her as my French mother. She was my mother's French sister, the sister who'd been born in France, the family so mixed up between Portugal and France and the Virgin Islands, which was the route my mother's family took to the United States, and Coney Island, where the French kept boarding houses, and where my mother met my father when he came from Lombardy, speaking only Lombard, and ended up the first night in that boarding house at Coney. My French mother, Emily, stands on the bridge in the old photo, the only photo I had of her. A dark bridge and her face in shadow, or perhaps her face was light once and the photo darkened. There is a pearly strangeness in the dark light. It is all I have of her. She must have had a box camera that day. I was wearing short pants on that little stone bridge. And who took the picture of the two of us together, arms around each other? So silent, the old picture. If only it could speak. It is her day off in the 1920s. I am 9. Where now that elegant cloche hat? That woman lost in time. A shadowy strangeness is all. She had fine skin, gossamer hair cut like Garbo or Louise Brooks, but not so beautiful. She had a wen on her breast. Might I not find that hat and that woman still, a seamstress in the back of some small thrift shop? Come back, come back. At least the photo. Might I not at least find the photo again in some lost album with black cardboard pages? There's the photo held on the stiff page by little paper triangles pasted on the photo of Emily. Mad and elegant, thinking herself a great writer with something to say to the world. In her shadow hat, having her picture taken with the child she always wanted. She had lovers, but no child. She stood by the bedside and took me. Life went on with us. The photo darkened. She was too distracted, too gypsy-like, too self-willed, too obsessed, too passionately articulate, burning too bright, too much of a lunatic of loving to keep that child, who ran off finally into the dark park of those days by the Bronx River, and sees her now nowhere else in memory except by that dark bridge, and saw her never again, and never saw her again, except in the back of old boutiques peered into now again with haunting glance in the Rue de Seine.
This is Lawrence Ferlinghetti, December 21st, 2012. Recipe for happiness in Khabarovsk or any place. One grand boulevard with trees, with one grand cafe and sun, with strong black coffee in very small cups. One not necessarily very beautiful man or woman who loves you. One fine day.
So I always said he's the guy with the most words that used the least words, because he was just like your grandpa. There's a Lawrence thing for you. All right, let's hit another one.
1, 2, 1, 2.
Once upon a time lives a poet saint. Oh, he changed some minds and ripped off my guitar paint. Went to jail in the summertime for standing up for something about his bottom line. Oh, the art of the people, yeah, the freedom of nothing. It ain't nothing till you make it into something. Oh, you're working for the love, didn't work for the pay. You knew working for the love paid better anyway. Oh, he served his family and his country too. When he came home, he had plans for me and you. Oh, the art of the people, yeah, the freedom of nothing. It ain't nothing till you make it into something. He sang a song about a desperation horse. We sat together in a general store. We were talking about nothing, say a whole lot more. We were talking about nothing, say a whole lot more. Oh, the art, oh, the people, the freedom of nothing. It ain't nothing till you make it into something. Nothing isn't nothing till you make it into something. Nothing isn't nothing till you make it into something. Nothing isn't nothing till you make it into something.
The great Chinese dragon, which is the greatest dragon in all the world, and which once upon a time was towed across the Pacific by a crew of coolies rowing in an open boat, was the first real live dragon ever actually to reach these shores. And the great Chinese dragon passing through the Golden Gate, sprouting streams of water.
Thus,
like
the
a
great
stream of
Chinese
fireworks.
dragon, which is the greatest dragon in all the world, now can only be seen creeping out of an Adler Alley cellar like a worm out of a hole sometime during the second week in February every year, when it sorties out of hibernation in its Chinese storeroom, pushed from behind by a band of 43 Chinese electricians and technicians who stuff its peristaltic accordion body up through a sidewalk delivery entrance. And first, the swaying snout appears, and then the eyes at ground level, feeling along the curb, and then the head itself, casting about and swaying and heaving finally up to the corner of Grant Avenue itself, where a huge paper sign proclaims the world's largest Chinatown. And the great Chinese dragon's jaws, wired permanently agape as if by a demented dentist, to display the cadmium teeth as the hungry head heaves out into Grant Avenue, right under the sign, and raising itself with a great snort of fire, suddenly proclaims the official firecracker start of the Chinese New Year. And he represents the force and mystery of life, and his head sways in the sky between the balconies as he comes, followed by 6 Chinese Boy Scouts wearing kids and carrying strings of batteries that light up the dragon like a nighttime freeway. And then the great Chinese dragon starts silently shrinking and shriveling up and drawing back and back and back to its first cave, and the soft silk skin wrinkles up and shrinks on its sprung bamboo bones, and the handsome dejected head hangs down like a defeated prize fighter's, and so is stuffed down again at last into its private place, and the cellar sidewalk doors pressed down again over the great wilted head, with one small hole of an eye blinking still through the gratings of the metal doors, as the great Chinese dragon gives one last convulsive earthquake shake and rolls over a dead dog to wait another white year for the final coming and the final sowing of his oats and cheese.
Poets, come out of your closets. Open your windows, open your doors. You have been holed up too long in your closed worlds. Come down. Come down from your Russian hills and Telegraph Hills, your Beacon Hills and your Chapel Hills, your Mount Analogs and Mount Parnasses, down from your foothills and mountains, out of your domes. The trees are still falling and will till the woods no more. No time now for sitting in them, as man burned down his own house to roast his pig. No more chanting Hare Krishna while Rome's burning. San Francisco's burning. Mayakovsky's Moscow's burning. The fossil fuels of life, night and the horse approaches, eating light, heat and power in the clouds have trousers. No time now for the artist to hide above, beyond, behind the scenes, indifferent, paring his fingernails, refining himself out of existence. No time now for our little literary games. No time now for our paranoias and hypochondrias. No time now for fear and loathing. Time now only for light and love. We have seen the best minds of our generation destroyed by boredom at poetry readings. Poetry isn't a secret society. It isn't a temple either. Secret words and chants won't do any longer. The hour of oming is over. The time for keening come. Time for keening and rejoicing over the coming end of industrial civilization, which is bad for earth and man. Time now to face outward in the full lotus position with eyes wide open. Time now to open your mouths with new epoch speech. Time now to communicate with all sentient beings. All you poets of the cities hung in museums, including myself. All you poets, writing poetry about poetry. All you dead language poets and deconstructionists. All you poetry workshop poets in the boondock heart of America. All you housebroken Ezra Pounds. All you far out, freaked out, cut up poets. All you pre-stressed concrete poets. All you pay toilet poets groaning with graffiti. All you A-train swingers who never swing in birches. All you masters of the sawmill haiku in the Siberias of America, all you eyeless unrealists, all you self-occulting super surrealists, all you bedroom visionaries and closet agit propagators, all you Groucho Marxist poets and leisure class comrades who lie around all day and talk about the working class proletariat, all you Catholic anarchists of poetry, all you Boston Brahmins and Bolinas bucolics, all you den mothers of poetry, all you Zen brothers of poetry, all you suicide lovers of poetry, all you hairy professors of poesy, all you poetry reviewers drinking the blood of the poet, All you poetry police, where are the wild children? The great voices speaking out with a sense of sweetness and sublimity, where the great new vision, the great worldview, the high prophetic song of the immense earth and all that sings to it and our relation to it. Poets descend to the street of the world once more and open your minds and eyes with the old visual delight, clear your throat and speak up. Poetry is dead. Long live poetry. With terrible eyes and buffalo strength, don't wait for the revolutionary to happen without you. Stop mumbling and speak out with a new wide open poetry, with a new common sensual public surface, with the other subjective levels or other subversive levels, a tuning fork in the inner ear to strike below the surface of your own sweet self. Still sing, yet utter the word en masse. Poetry, the common carrier for the transportation of the public to higher places than other wheels can carry it. Poetry still falls from the skies into our streets, still open. They haven't put up the barricades yet. The streets still alive with faces. Lovely men and women still walking there. Still lovely creatures everywhere. In the eyes of the secret of all still buried there. Wild children still sleeping here, awake and sing in the open air.
Oh heart, oh heart, oh heart, oh heart, involuntary muscle heart, oh heart, mute lover, oh heart, oh heart, without a tongue, oh heart, of your own, oh heart, mute lover, oh heart, I will speak for you, oh heart, involuntary, oh heart, whenever you, oh heart, mute lover, seeing a certain someone, oh heart, without a voluntary muscle, oh heart, feel love, oh heart, mute lover, oh heart, I will speak for you, without a voluntary muscle, heart, love your love, oh heart, feel love, oh heart, oh heart, oh heart.
Welcome back. We want to take this moment to remind you again that if you'd like to support the City Lights Foundation by making a donation in Lawrence's memory, you can do so in the PayPal link in the comments or email foundation@citylights.com for more information on how you can give. We'd like to now take this moment and share a little bit of what Lawrence means to you, which you've all been telling us in these wonderful comments. Allie Summers says that my high school English teacher, Mr. Winkler, took us on a field trip to City Lights bookstore, and I've been a writer ever since. Thank you, Lawrence. Jeff Kane says, I'm going to miss him, but if his life means anything, it is a call to bring more art, poetry, passion, and love into the world. Jim Jenkins says that upon climbing to the poetry room one afternoon, I remembered who I was. Thank you, Mr. Ferlingetti. And Valerie says, City Lights is the heart of San Francisco. Everything emanates from there. Feel free to keep sharing your memories in the comments. We love reading them. We kick off the next part of the night with a special performance art tribute by Lawrence's assistant, Mauro Aprile Zanetti, that took place in March when San Francisco City Hall was lit in the colors of the Italian flag in Ferlinghetti's honor, a few days after what would have been his 102nd birthday. That night, Coincidentally, a rally to end violence in Myanmar was being held at City Hall. It included demonstrators marching for revolution by candlelight. When Mauro saw the protest that was underway at City Hall the night that we were filming, he turned to me and said, "You know, Lawrence would have loved this."
When a friend leaves, it's always too early. Lawrence Ferlinghetti died on February 22nd. I was holding his hands until a few hours before his last wheeze. There couldn't be a bigger dream for a poet, I think, rather than to leave a word. And a new word actually is a new world of possibilities. Last March 14, it was the 130th anniversary of the largest mass lynching in the United States of America. 11 Sicilian Americans were killed by vigilantes. And now it's about other ethnic groups. We're still there. Seeing the rotunda tonight lit up with these colors that 100 years ago couldn't be, even in a dream, this leaves me without words. It's time to recover the roots of our essential right to dream, to make the world possibly a better one. Living life with tenderness, yes, tenderness toward our neighbors. Always looking for a rebirth of wonder together. Lawrence Ferlinghetti. Il verbo fluxare. Esaudire i propri sogni. Io fluxo, tu fluxi, lei, lui fluxa, noi fluxiamo, voi fluxate, loro fluxano. Vuoi fluxare con me stanotte? The verb flux, to flux. I flux, you flux, she, it, he fluxes, we flux, you flux, they flux. Fulfill your own dreams. Do you want to flux with me tonight?
I was late because I was caught up in the quake. You know, when there's a quake. I'm glad to see you're still here and the earth hasn't opened up and you've all disappeared. So we're having a quake, a literary quaking. It's announced in the smallest papers, free for the taking. It's happening here today in downtown San Francisco, in the town that's famous for earthquakes, and ready for them in every way. It's a quake that's been promised. All the best writers will be quaking or shaking, so get ready to tremble. Get ready to shake. The hour has come. The atomic clock is down to 1. And I am wondering, who will really be shook up? Who and what will really be shook? Who will be quaking in their boots? Will it shake the country to its roots? Will it crack the marble skies? Will it have a ripple effect with lit revolutions and lit orgasms all around the world? Will it shred the fabric of society and cause inebriation or sobriety? Will it get you high or low? Will you go with the flow? Will it make lovers run for cover? Will it shake up marriages in fancy carriages? Will it let loose the dogs of war or liberate the doves of peace? Will it leave a scorched earth or business as usual on the home earth? Will it open up a huge hole into which will tumble all the cars and trucks and freeways in the land? And where will be the epicenter of this quake? And what the reading on the Richter scale? Will there be a lot of real estate for sale? What towers and powers will come tumbling down? Will it shake down the banks? Will it hit the ranks of both the good and the bad, the glad and the sad? Will it derail tanks and war, or derail peace and more, or bring down the war machine or other things obscene? Will it burn up the bush, and will the White House fall? Will it change anything at all? Will it open a great chasm in which we'll see the huge spiritual void in America? Or will it move your heart and soul? Will it shake your mind? Will it wake up the humanity of all mankind?
Welcome back. Before I reintroduce our next guest, I just want to share one more reader memory of Lawrence. Kevin the Cap says, if you ever wrote an obscenity on the web and didn't go to jail, thank Lawrence Ferlinghetti, period. It is now my pleasure to introduce Jack Hirschman, Allison Lovejoy, and Gary Kamiya, who will be joining us reading and performing live tonight. Before we get the live section of our evening started, I would like to ask each of you what Lawrence Ferlinghetti and his work mean to you. Jack, can we start with you?
Hi. Hello, hello. I'm going to read the Elegy Arcane in memory of Lawrence Ferlinghetti for Elaine Katzenberger. Addio, Lawrence, for works well done, for the poems and paintings and the stands taken for causes in need of spreading the word. You papalist, anarchist, common nest for red birds and black to fly into and out of. You've long been honored, and now that you belong to what ages are left in this holocaustic pandemic for us all, we know that your passing has left the world angelically filled with the light of all you've been, a fighter but reticent, a righteous warrior but gentle of spirit. That's why the night of the day you died, I was embraced by an angel who loved you so much she kept you breathing by way of her own breathlessness, and is now transfigured in the modesty she's brought to you, who first brought it to her, who can now show the world the glory of the book we all know, despite burial or cremation or any number of ways your death is described, the book which is opened at the cover and into whose depth you are lain, not to be buried at all, but to be read and read and read. And now I would like to read a poem of Lawrence's, the 15th poem in the Coney Island. and for which Allison Lovejoy has written a beautiful composition. Constantly risking absurdity. Constantly risking absurdity and death whenever he performs above the heads of his audience, the poet, like an acrobat, climbs on rhyme to a high wire of his own making, and balancing on I-beams above a sea of faces, paces his way to the other side of day, performing entrechat and sleight of foot tricks and other high theatrics, and all without mistaking anything for what it may not be. For he's the super realist who must perforce perceive taught truth before the taking of each stance or step in his supposed advance toward that still higher perch where beauty stands and waits with gravity to start her death-defying leap. And he, a little Charlie Chaplin man, who may or may not catch her fair, eternal form spread-eagled in the empty air of existence. Allison.
Jack, thank you so much for sharing those beautiful works. Before we go on to Allison, do you have a memory of Lawrence that you could share with our viewers this evening?
Well, in my 30 years of living in San Francisco, when I first came to study music at the conservatory, I spent a lot of nights in North Beach, and I went to poetry readings, and I've always wanted to be in the epicenter of where the scene was. And I've run across him several times, and we met at a concert at Herbst Theater, and I always found him to be delightful, engaging, and also one of the forces that makes this city so great. And also being aligned with literature and poetry and art song, I've always been interested in the work of great poets. And I'm happy to share with you a setting of Jack Hirschman's song Path, and followed by that, Lawrence's poem that Jack just read, Constantly Risking Absurdity. I'll start with Path, if that's okay.
Thanks, Allison.
One more note. Path really talks about the internal life of the artist and coming out into the world. Whereas on the opposite side, Constantly Risking Absurdity is about the poet in the world, trying to create and make beauty in the world.
Oh, to your broken heart, if you don't think you have one, get one. To get one, be sincere. Learn sincerity of intent by letting life enter. Because you're helpless, really, to do otherwise. And even as you try escaping, let it take you and tear you open like a letter sent with the sentence inside you've waited for all of your life. yet you've committed nothing. Even as you try escaping, let it take you and tear you open like a letter sent with the sentence inside you waited for all of your life. Yet you've committed nothing. Let it send you up, let it break you heart. Broken heartedness is the beginning of all real reception. The ear of humility hears beyond the gates. See the gates opening, your hands going akimbo on your hips, your mouth opening like a womb, giving birth to your voice for the first time. Go singing and whirling into the glory of being ecstatically simple. Write the poem. Constantly risking absurdity and death whenever he performs above the heads of the audience. The poet, like an acrobat, climbs on his own rhyme on a highway of his own making. Balancing on eyebrows above a sea of faces, paces his way to the other side of day, performing entre shots and sleight of foot tricks and other high theatrics, and all without mistaking anything for what it may not be. He's the super realist who must perforce perceive taught truth before the taking of each stance or step in his supposed advance, towards that still higher perch where beauty stands and waits with gravity to start her death defying leap. little Charlie Chaplin man who may or may not catch her fair eternal form, spread eagled in the empty air of existence. Thank you.
Bella anche, molto bella. Yeah. Sì, sì, sì.
Thank you so much for having me and for asking me to write the song, Jack.
What?
Thank you for having me and for asking me to write that song.
Oh, yes.
It was a great collaboration between the two of you. Thank you. Gary, before we hear what you're going to read, I would love to hear what Lawrence Ferlinghetti and his work mean to you as a writer, as a historian, as Gary.
Well, Lawrence Ferlinghetti was the last living link with the Beat generation, an extraordinary movement, unlike any other literary movement, had this massive impact on society, on hundreds of thousands, millions of young people. And in a way, as long as Lawrence was alive, in a certain way, it felt like that, that connection was, that flame still burned, that holy, obscene Beat flame burned. But I think Lawrence's gift was, after he passed, and we all had a chance to reflect on it, the flame still burns, because one of the gifts of art, and the gifts that certainly that Lawrence would have been the first to always say, was that art and rebellion and the dark and life-affirming energy of art is bigger than anyone, and it continues. And City Lights, as the epicenter of it, continues, and Lawrence's example continues. So to me, he was just an inextricable part of the soul of the city, and he always will be.
Thank you, Gary.
And now I'm going to read a piece about North Beach. This piece is called North Beach Forever. For Lawrence Ferlinghetti, who as much as any individual was responsible for making his beloved quarter one of the great neighborhoods of the world, and with apologies to Dylan Thomas. One drunken evening was so much like another. Around the corner of that dim and neon dreamland, vanished now and out of all thought, except for the flashing nipples that sometimes blink at me a moment before sleep, that I can never remember if I chugged a 32 ounce when I was 24, or chugged a 24 ounce when I was 32. All the North Beach stories stagger down to the cross-eyed, shit-faced sea, and the only problem is which one to tell. Should I revisit that appalling night when a joint, which I had inadequately snuffed out before putting it in my thrift store jacket pocket during a crowded dinner theater production held for some reason in the old Carol Dodas, ignited my jacket? The acrid clouds of marijuana and wool-infused smoke rising up from the back of my chair like a humiliating fart whose origins cannot be plausibly denied. Should I summon from my Homeric list of sexual rejections the extremely attractive but entirely schizophrenic woman I tried to pick up in a long-vanished bar at Broadway in Montgomery, who, when I asked her if she wanted to get a cup of coffee, replied, sorry, but I don't live in this reality. There are 1,000 such stories in the, alas, only rarely naked North Beach of my youth. I burned my heedless 20s and 30s, as well as my thrift store jacket, in the bars on Upper Grant and Adler and Green Street. But I don't want to talk about those bygone years now. I want to talk about my old friend Jack Lind. For compared to Jack, no matter how many times I pounded the bongo drums of my mind or howled at the indifferent moon, I was a mere onlooker, a wide-eyed innocent, a college boy, a wannabe Dionysian. He was the real North Beach thing. Jack Lind was the most boho dude I ever knew. Whatever beat is, he was it. He was a Danish jazz aficionado and former newspaperman who, when I met him, was living on a houseboat on Gate 5 in Sausalito, a countercultural scene about which he exulted in his lustful, laughing basso profundo. They fuck like rabbits, man. Later, he followed my footsteps into taxi driving, which he loved and which he kept doing long after all of us had gotten out of the gig. Of course, he adored North Beach. And there's still a photograph of him on the wall in Vesuvio, bushy, mustached, and gap-toothed, with a bunch of other taxi drivers, writers, and drunks. He was a free spirit and a great, lovely man. I can still hear him snapping his fingers to Dexter Gordon, his deep voice saying, "You want to get a horn, man? You know, a little drinky pool." He embodied what Jack Kerouac said about San Francisco. It was the end of the continent. They didn't give a damn. I always wanted to learn how to not give a damn, and I never really did, but Jack was as good a teacher as I ever had. He was a lot older than me, and he died of cancer many years ago in Copenhagen, his native town. He was the first of my dear friends to die. When Jack passed, his old friends, most of us now with wives and kids and jobs and other manifestations of that mystery that moves in one direction only and never comes back, all met in North Beach, scene of so many of our past escapades with Jack, to have a wake for him. We had a drink at Vesuvio, or maybe it was Specs, and told each other stories about him. And we had to do it right. So we went out and walked a block up Romulo Alley, one of the wondrous little alleys of North Beach that runs north off Broadway, and went past Fresno, another fabled alley. We sat on the curb below the insanely tilted block of Romulo, across from an old parking lot on a little hidden four-way corner surrounded by the worn-out gray back ends of apartment houses, with the big buildings of downtown rising up in the distance. It's one of North Beach's sacred lost corners, places where romance and memory and loss are soaked into the cobblestones. That's where we smoked a joint and drank a pint and said goodbye to Jack and to a vanished time in our lives of kicks and foolishness and dreams. Life changes, but North Beach follows you around. You don't lose it. It gets old with you. And the lines you see in its face, the cracks in its glamorous facade, are more beautiful even than its mythical youth. On the northern boundary of North Beach, at Chestnut and Columbus, stands a joint called La Roca's Corner. La Roca's Corner's claim to fame is its venerable neon sign, which proclaims, "This is it." I've had a few horns in La Roca's, and this must be considered a false advertising. But if you stick around 70 or 80 years, if your bar has an autographed photograph of Rocky Graziano on the wall, even the silliest kitsch turns to hammered Byzantine gold. And actually, that's the dirty little secret of the whole neighborhood. From the Barbary Coast days through the international settlements, the beats, the hippies, the yuppies, the first dot-com deeters with their Auschwitz haircuts, through the braying tech bros, the great COVID emptying, and our current rebirth. The secret is that there never was a golden age. North Beach has been dining out on its myth forever. We're nostalgic for Jack Kerouac? Well, guess what? Jack Kerouac was nostalgic for Jack London. And Jack London was envious of Robert Louis Stevenson. And Robert Louis Stevenson thought that Mark Twain got there first and ate all the candy. And Mark Twain, he just wanted to be back on the Mississippi. The first Chilean who stumbled up Telegraph Hill and nailed a plank on Alta Street 150 years ago sat there looking out over the bay and said to himself, "This is it," in big mental neon letters. And we've all been reciting that same smug mantra, the slogan of the Alan Watts Realty, ever since. We know the pot of gold is bogus, but we still keep going there. We've been doing it for 40 years. As young scapegraces, not so young scapegraces, and now not young scapegraces at all. We keep heading to North Beach, keep turning left on Churchill Alley out of the Broadway tunnel. Even though in those 40 years, we have never yet once hit the jackpot, felt the supreme high, made the scene, danced the dance, met the chick, seen the best minds of our generation doing anything, let alone walking through the Negro streets at dawn looking for an angry fix. But it doesn't matter. There's always next time. And when you finally begin to understand that there ain't going to be no next time, that this is it, that's okay. You don't need North Beach to give up its secrets because you know them already. You may have burned your youth here. So what? You're still here. You're here on the corner of Grant and Green in this old Italian valley beneath its two guardian hills, looking down like kindly old paisans. And the waves are lapping down at Aquatic Park to the north. And the filthy, numberless alleys of Chinatown lurk to the south. And the glasses in every bar are full. And Broadway is stupid jammed with John Dos Passos sailors, and the palmistry sign is reflected in the upper windows of Vesuvio, and dear eternal city lights is still announcing that the revolution will not be televised. And the parrots are flying above Washington Square, and the Mason Street cable car rattle clatters onto Columbus, and you're at the dead center of town, the bullseye of your life, where you've been 1,000 times before and where you will always return, where you left your heart and where you found it. Thank you.
The world is a beautiful place to be born into.
If you don't mind happiness not always being so very much fun, if you don't mind a touch of hell now and then, just when everything's fine, because even in heaven they don't sing all the time.
The world is a beautiful place to be born into. If you don't mind some people dying all the time, or maybe only starving some of the time, which isn't half so bad if it isn't you. Oh, the world is a beautiful place to be born into. If you don't much mind a few dead minds in higher places, or a bomb or two now and then in your upturned faces, or such other improprieties as our name brand society is prey to, with its men of distinction and its men of extinction and its priests,
Other patrolmen
and its various segregation
and congressional
investigation, and other constipation that our full flesh is prey to. Yes, the world is the best place of all for such things as making the love scene and making the fun scene, making the sad scene and singing the low songs. Yeah,
and walking around, looking at everything, and smelling flowers, and goosing statues, and even thinking, and kissing people, making babies, wearing pants and waving hats and dancing, and going swimming in the river on picnics in the middle of the summer, and just generally living it up. Yes, but then, right in the middle of it, comes the smiling mortician.
The long boats sail into the night. Farewell.
Thank you again, everyone, for joining us this evening. And thank you to all of our Chronicle subscribers. The work that is done across our newsroom, which now extends everywhere, into the streets, into our living rooms, even into the archives, could not be done without your support. Thank you again to all of our incredible performers, both live here tonight and taped. Thank you to our producers and the videographers who made this evening possible. Remember, you can still give to the City Lights Foundation Future Fund in the link or by emailing foundation@citylights.com. Now, it only feels right that we give Lawrence Ferlinghetti the final words of the evening. Thank you, all of you.